Not me, because I am not where you are. So for once, it's not me.
You should be up and running, right?
We are. Okay. So Ray, let's give, we are live. I did just see it. I think I did. Yeah, we are live on Facebook. But you mentioned you want to talk a couple minutes about Airbnb. Let's let a few people jump on here, and then we'll kick it off once we get a few people on.
Well, I thought what we might do, sorry, I'm still typing it up. I just got back from checking a property. What we might do is just talk about some of the things that we're actually working on. And then also that might, if anybody has, if they're on the call, it might prompt some questions or interactions. And we love interactions because if we can talk about real things to real people, you know, it's fun for everybody. What I hate is talking about hypotheticals. A lot of times people say, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? It's like, okay, well, we're not even at that point yet. You got to figure out how to get moving, and then we'll worry about that. You know, I know that sounds stupid, but there's so many reasons why people don't do things, and it's like, no, you do them and be around people that are doing what you want to do, and they're going to show you how to do it. They're going to show you how they overcome stuff. And so, what, you know, our tagline is, we haven't decided, it's either calm or be calm. And CALM stands for knowledge, attitude, K for knowledge, A for attitude, L for leads, and M for money. And we want to master that. And so the attitude, one of the things with the attitude is just getting the outcomes that we want. And so I wanted to talk about outcomes, but also talk about some of the stuff we're working on and put it in that context of how attitude and knowledge and leads and money relate to it. So in other words, here's the scenario, here's the opportunity. So what's CALM, how does CALM interact, engage with that outcome? How do we get that outcome? And one of the things, you know, I can't tell you, but we've been, the actual times that this has happened, but we've been involved in real estate investor associations for a long time. And without them, I would have never got started, to be honest, because there were no such thing as coaches like there are now. Now coaches are like 10 times faster than AREA, but still you still need to be part of AREA because there's so much that no one coach can do everything for you. You know, it's like well, right now our local team is in the World Series. They got coaches there's coaches everywhere you turn, you know, because there's a batting coach, there's a pitching coach. I mean, there's a first base coach, a third base coach, you know, everything, fielding coach. So coaches are the answer, I think, for people that want to move fast. But you can have, you know, one player can have multiple coaches because there's so many facets that we have to master. And just if you look at CALM, it's knowledge, that's a wide area. Then you got attitude, then you got leads, you got dealing with money. And each one of those things could be a 2 or 3 day seminar. You know, I mean, and I've been going my whole life to those things that talk about each one of those things. And it's changing too. It's not like what worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago is totally appropriate now. So if we put this if we roll this up in the context of real things that we're working on, then we can see where those things make a difference. And probably we're going to find that one of them is far more important than all the rest combined, and it's attitude. In fact, one of the guys, we've been inspired. I've been listening to guys talk about Airbnb for 7 years, and I've been listening intensely. I've been listening intensely, and I'm not just going there as a blank shell. I mean, I've been doing a lot of these things that you have to master in Airbnb. You have to have a good property. You have to either buy or control the property. You have to know how to fix it up properly. You have to know how to make it perform. You have to understand customer service. You have to scale with your team to get out there and get it done. You got to build in the right technology. A lot of these things we're doing, but it's just like for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been following this. Well, this George guy comes along, and in 3 years, he's got, about $100,000 cash flow or $100,000 revenue per month, not cash flow, but $100,000 revenue per month. He did it in 3 years, and it's very doable. It is very doable. And so we're this in the next 30 to 60 days. And I wanted to shoot for 30 days, but now that I've got involved, I realize it's just not humanly possible. Our goal was to get 5 Airbnbs up and running, and it's going to take us 60 days, but that's not bad. I mean, we're going from 0 to 5 in 60 days, and I'm pretty confident we'll come close to making that happen. So, and so what is that big of the K.A.L.M? Knowledge, attitude, leads, and money. It's attitude. And if you got the attitude, I mean, everything else is going to fall in place. In fact, I mean, we talk in our group, James. I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, we had a level 10 meeting with me, you, Brandon, and Sharon. And a lot of that conversation was about attitude. And it's like, on the one hand, unfortunately, and I'm kind of an engineer person, but unfortunately, whenever you're trying to do something, it requires other humans to cooperate with you. You've got to kind of lead them or push them or pull them. And so somehow, you got to learn how to manage and control your attitude and the attitudes of the people around you and still get the outcome that you need, right? And so you were on those calls. I mean, I think you know how. I mean, you may not like me, but I got attitude.
It's our calls, it's our students' calls, it's our own personal business calls. It's all about getting results. You got to do whatever it is you can. You got to have that attitude that you're going to get results, and you have to be that way to be successful. And you have to be around other people that have the same attitude. Because I mean, if you hang around criminals, you're going to be a criminal, or you're going to be associated with that. But if you hang around successful people, that's what you have the better chance of being. But let me go ahead and kick us off officially. Ray just kind of took over the show there for a minute, but I'm okay with that. I forgive him this time. But yeah, we're going to be talking about how to get outcomes. If you've been looking for a deal for more than 30 days, you got to, change your attitude and focus. I do see Emma and Milton, a couple of our super volunteers and students on. I want to acknowledge them. And I want to ask a volunteer to put CALM in the comments. K is knowledge, A is attitude, L is leads, and M is money. So if somebody can drop that in the comments. And if you're tuning in, say hello, hit the heart button, hit the wow button, give us a share, show us some love, and then let us know where you're tuning in from. Like Ray mentioned a few minutes ago, these are weekly trainings that we do, and interaction is encouraged and welcome. If we're talking about a particular subject, drop a question in the comments, and we'll make sure that we'll spend a few minutes answering those questions. So Ray, let's go ahead and dive in. If somebody has been spinning their wheels for 30, 45, 60 days, and they're still struggling to find that, first deal or that next deal, what can you give them to, hopefully change their direction?
You got to reach out there and talk to people who are out there every day. We have worked really hard to build the Texas real estate investment community and the massive passive for deal makers. The Texas real estate investment community, we are like, I feel like a huge vacuum cleaner, because I feel like we spend half of our time cleaning it up and making it what it needs to be for real estate investors. I regularly communicate with wholesalers on there about deals. In fact, I'll give you an example. Somebody posted a deal on there last week, and I think they wanted 125 or something, and I figured, or 130, and I figured it was worth 95. So I offered 95, and they got all the way down from 125 to 103. And if I would have taken the 103 offer, I would have had that deal. And we've got enough going on that I am a real don't want her. But if I was just starting, I would have bought that deal at 103 and I would have went to the next deal. And you may say, well, Ray, that's hard to get those deals. I'm 99% sure if I would have agreed to the 103, I would have had that deal at 103. So it's just not hard to get deals. You just got to go where the deals are being offered. And that deal, that group right there, we're growing by, and I don't know if I told you this, James, but we're about to break 900 people a day. We're now exceeding 800 people a day, and we're about to break 900 people a day join that group. And that we are really after getting deal makers in that group. And if you're not a deal maker, and if it's not related to real estate investing, then we basically, you break those rules, we kick you off there. So we're constantly cleaning the spammers off there. There's a lot of large groups out there that have a lot of spammers and stuff, and we're diligently working on that. There's quite a lot of people don't know, you know, James, but there's quite a few of us working on that to keep that clean. And it's almost impossible to keep it clean. It's a full-time job, but that's a great place. And that's one of about 100 places that somebody that was serious about buying can go to find deals. So if you can't get a deal in 30 days, I don't think you're trying hard enough.
Well, another thing that you said, this kind of, it's an important topic to talk about, but you just kind of glazed over it. We're talking about some things that we want you to do and actually start working on, but you actually mentioned something that we don't want you to do. And that is, we don't want you to be a wanter and become desperate, because when you do that, you'll overpay for a property, you get a property under contract for too much, then you won't be able to move it, and it's just a disaster. So you really just kind of got to evaluate. If you've been looking for that deal for 30, 45 days, evaluate your attitude, your activities. Another thing that we talk about, again, a volunteer, drop this in the comments, KPIs, key performance indicators. Go back and look at your marketing. And, we're building, Brandon, we're working with Brandon, and we're building our marketing matrix, for our organization. And that's just coming a long way. And that's really going to, show us where we need to improve, but also show us where we're doing well. And over the next quarter, we'll be able to, keep this spreadsheet up, and we can go back and see our results, and we can see where our efforts and our money is going, and we'll see the results from it.
That marketing matrix that we made is a good example of where we basically said, hey, we're not getting the outcome we want. We're not dealing with this in a methodical and scientific way. We're doing a good old boy way, and we're not getting the results we need. And so we basically went back to the drawing board. You, myself, and Brandon I wouldn't say we're having a meeting every day, but it's almost every day. And we go over that, we find out where we are, we're doing split testing, we're identifying the key performance indicators that we want. This is an area where the three of us, none of us are experts on it, because it's not marketing for leads, or it's not marketing for real estate deals. But we're applying what we know with marketing for real estate deals to this, to build the marketing arm that we're trying to build. And because one of the things is we're trying to build the RIA in Houston from basically zero, and so how we build that, how we get people, how we get the audience, how we build that exciting, energetic community of like-minded people. And the reason why it's so important, by the way, I'll just take a little rabbit hole here, is super important that you build. If you don't have the surroundings that you need, you make the surroundings you want. And because we do have experience in maintaining and growing RIAs, we found an opportunity in Houston. We're going to grow it. And we got what, 6 or 7 of us really trying to make that happen. And there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to make that happen. I mean, we're up to 18 or 20, I think 20 vendors now. We're getting super volunteer. We've got a huge sphere of influence. And the reason, I mean, it's in some ways it's a selfish motive, but you get these kind of people in all these people in the same room, and it creates a synergy that just goes through a roof. And all of a sudden deals are being made, opportunities are being created. You're beginning to have fun with like-minded people. And that's kind of what we did with Massive Passive Deal Makers and Texas Real Estate Investing Community. And we're keeping it clean. I mean, that's the main thing, is keep it focused, because there's so many people come in there and say, oh, join my buyers list. No, that's not what this is. That's fun for the guy that wants to build his buyer list, but it's not fun for the 13 or 14,000 other people that are getting that message. They don't want to hear that. They want to know, like, where's the money? Where's the rubber hit the road? How do I make this happen? And so that's what we're really working hard to build it a real valuable community. And building that marketing matrix is like, okay, look, you can say you're trying, the hell with trying, we got to get an outcome. So how do we get that outcome? How do we make that happen? If you're out there and you're investing and you're not closing deals, it's because you're not following basic rules. You're not blocking your time. You're not reaching out with people. You're not reaching out to the people who have deals. You're not asking the right people. You're not penetrating the audience. We don't condone putting out yellow signs, but you know how many investors make a living putting out yellow signs? I mean, you just put out 500 yellow signs a week. Tell me you don't get a deal. If you don't get a deal, it's because you're not answering the phone, because you're being a jerk, because you don't know how to negotiate. And probably the biggest reason is you're just not working. You're not doing the work. And we have a saying for getting outcomes, and I'm not going to say it on this show here because it's a risque way of saying it, but there's no excuse for not getting an outcome.
Well, I'm going to change it up I'm going to keep it PG for this.
Okay.
But before Ray mentioned something I do want to kind of touch on. If you're looking for buyers or you're a buyer looking for wholesalers, and he mentioned that, hey, if you're looking for properties, drop your email, join my buyers list or whatever. The best way to do that is to go out to a RIA, go out and actually meet them, shake their hand, fist bump them, whatever, and build that relationship and do deals with them that way. Because it's all about the relationships. So that's my tangent on buyers and buyers list and everything. But there's an acronym. I need another volunteer, another comment, AFO. Okay, now I'm going to make it PG. Just use your imagination of what it is. And it's accountable for outcomes.
Well, that's not,
you have to be accountable for outcomes.
I love it. But now I had A be something else.
Yeah.
So, you have to read between the lines.
I'm sure our audience can figure it out. We don't have to say it. It's PG. So, but yeah, AFO, accountable for outcomes. Okay. Go back to the drawing board like we did, create a marketing metrics and identify what your KPIs need to be. How many hours am I spending driving for dollars? How many hours am I spending sending out postcards? How much am I spending on Facebook ads? The different types of marketing that you're doing, how are you doing it, and what results are you getting or what results are you not getting? And then that's going to allow you to zero in on what you're doing and focus better.
Hey, did I ever share with James knows and Hal knows that I love history, and I'm a big Civil War history nut. And I was reading, there was a guy who was he was considered a guerrilla, one of the guerrilla fighters. In fact, they still train in West Point some of the tactics that he used in the Civil War. And he was quoted once as, don't take any prisoners. And I never really understood why they would say that. And the reason is, if you take a prisoner, you have to have a person, one or two people, take that guy to the back lines, right? So now you've taken one or two of your soldiers, right? That's your resources if you're an investor. You've taken one or two of your soldiers off the front line where they're needed, and you take them to the back line because you want to protect that prisoner. And so that concept, take no prisoners, comes, I'm sure it comes from the Roman days or even sooner, earlier than that. But it means we're not giving up any resources. We will win this battle, and you're going to die if you're our enemy. We're not taking prisoners. We kill everybody. And it's like, if you think about the that James called accountable, and think of what else that could mean, then you want to be that for the outcome, and don't take prisoners. I mean, because whatever amount of energy, whatever amount of resources you have, it takes everything you've got, especially let's say you've done 20 deals or less. If you've done 20 deals or less, there's so many things that you don't know. You think you know them, but until you do them and you find out, oh, I did it wrong. Oh, that I went bankrupt. Oh, I went out of business. Oh, I lost $50,000. So if there's so many things that you have to do right, that you can't divide your attention. You can't take resources off the table. You can't take your eye off the ball. You have to really be pushing hard to get that outcome, and you give it everything you got. In fact, oftentimes people say, well, I want to form an LLC and do all this before I get started. And it's like, they got the take prisoner attitude, and they're never going to succeed because they got their eyes on the wrong target, right? The enemy is that not getting that deal. The enemy is not closing that deal. And so you've got to put 100% of your energy into getting that deal. If you're starting, getting that deal, making the deal work, and make it perfect later. Make your 20th deal perfect. But the first deal, just make it where you survive, and make it ideally where it's not just a learning experience, but it actually gets you on the track of financial freedom.
So Ray, I'm just starting out. I'm going to pretend I'm just starting out. What would that look for me? I've studied wholesaling, or I've studied real estate investing. I've studied that for probably 6 months now. Now I'm ready to take action. Okay, but I don't know, do I need an LLC or not? I mean, what should my first 3 actions be? What do I need to focus on first?
Get a deal. First of all, get right attitude. Attitude is, we don't take prisoners. We're going to make this happen. And the happen is get the deal, make the deal happen, right? Bug your people. If you know me, bug me. I mean, I got a lot more respect for somebody that's bugging me and trying to get an outcome than somebody that just sits in the back and never does anything. So bug people around you, do whatever it takes, get the deal, and make that deal happen. And you can't get a deal if you're not talking to the right people. So you got to figure out who to talk to. And it might mean that, like, I don't mean this in bragging or anything, but if I've got a qualified lead, I've got a really good chance of closing that person, because I've learned how to listen to them. I've learned how to solve their problem. I don't have just one solution like a wholesaler, here's a check kind of deal. I've got multiple solutions. I got multiple strategies that we could talk to these people and try to close. So, but if let's say you don't have any of that, all you have is like, hey, here's the money kind of deal. The worst case scenario, here's the money for the deal, right? Then you might have to talk to 50 people where I might have to talk to 4. So what? If you're the AFO, you're the accountable for outcomes, or it's an outcome at all costs, then you're going to talk to those 50 people, and you're going to overcome it. The worst thing you can do is try to be good at this. The best thing you can do is just work on the outcome, work on what it takes. And you're not going to do what somebody that's been doing it for 40 years has done. It's going to take you a while.
So in other words, talk to those 50 people, and you may talk to 49 people, and those 49 are going to say no. But
Yeah.
you got to keep talking to that next one. Okay. There's
Exactly.
all that cliche. Every no is one step closer to a yes. It's just like life is going to throw you curveballs. Life is going to knock you down. You know, just like last night, you know, we were talking about, you know, we're down in Houston and, you know, our baseball team is in the World Series. Well, they got their butts kicked last night. Okay. Well, tonight they have game 2. They got to forget about last night and they got to come out and they got to, you know, go after it tonight. Last night was a no, and tonight they got to make sure it's a yes.
In the book, How to Become a Real Estate Millionaire Realtor, Gary Keller wrote 2 books. One was How to Be a Millionaire Investor, and one was How to Be a Millionaire Real Estate Agent. In that book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, he talks about set what your goal is. Like, hey, I want to get we did the retired 5 years where you just do 1 deal per quarter. Well, we did the math on that. We showed how that's possible. That's very, very doable. And let's say that's your goal. If that's your goal, then you know how many you got to do a year. So if you're saying, okay, I got to do 4 a year, 1 a quarter, then you work. Gary Keller showed us, and that's a good audible book to listen to. You work backwards, and it's basically I gotta get people. If I'm going to buy and hold these properties, I got to get people in those properties. So how am I going to get people in those properties? How am I going to get the properties? How many leads do I have to have? How many people do I have to talk to? And in the beginning, if your conversion rate is 1 in 50, and you need to do a certain amount of deals in a certain period of time, then you know how many people you have to talk to. And if you're not talking to that 50, or if you're not talking to that 100 people, you're not going to make that deal. There's a guy out there that really loves for sale by owners, and for sale by owners is relatively simple. But if you listen to people that learn how to talk to those people, they convert often. People that don't know how to talk to for sale by owners, they don't convert near as often. And so your job is figure out how to convert better, but not before you start making the calls. Make the calls first. Find the for sale, if that's a model you're going to follow, find the for sale by owners and start talking to the people. If you've got a coach, that's the perfect thing. Like we do group coaching, but if there's lots of people who do group coaching. If you got a coach, then that's where you want to get on those phone calls and make your coach say, okay, this is what I did. What did I do wrong? How do I change the wording? How do I fix that script? What is the right questions to be asking? What are my options when the person says, oh, I don't want to do that deal? Well, then what do you do next? We're going to go deal. We're going to drive a couple hours tomorrow to talk to a seller that wants to sell a very desirable property. We're going to meet face to face, because meeting face to face is very valuable in these kinds of properties. It's a commercial property, and we're going to get him to know, trust, and like us, and we're going to try to make the best deal we can. And our last option is always to be avoid the money, but we're gonna make that happen. We're gonna have that conversation, and we're gonna try to get him to convert. And if we're successful, we'll make a lot of money. The seller will get what he needs and what he wants, and we'll move on. And so if you can't do that 1 time out of 4, 1 time out of 5, that's all right. Just do the 50 times. And I recommend, if you go to RIA meetings, then talk to the guys who are the wheeler dealers, and if they'll give you their time, talk to them. If you've got a coach, then make that coach show you what you did wrong. Make that coach advise you on how to talk to that. Make that coach give you alternatives like, well, what if he says no to this? Then what do I do? How do I move that forward? And you'll find, like, if there's lots of good coaches, and a good coach is going to come back and say, well, what is he trying to accomplish? What's he trying to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you? And there'll be a lot of talk, and it's almost like having a battle plan. You're fixing to go into battle with the enemy. What is your battle plan? And I'm not saying think of them as your enemy, but it's obviously you've got your objectives and they've got their objectives, and you have to figure out a way to tie those objectives together and where both parties can accept the outcome.
So, you know, Ray, I don't really see how you talk and say so much without taking a breath. You're just so continuous. I wanted to back up for a couple of minutes. Guys, I hope you guys were taking notes a few minutes ago. Ray just rushed through something. What he actually did is he gave you an example. I'm not sure if you realized it or not, or if that was intentional, but he gave you an example of KPIs, key performance indicators. You know, how many deals, how much money do you want to make? Then how much money do you want to make per deal? Okay, in order to do that many deals, how many people do I need to talk to? You know, how many people am I talking to? How many people am I getting in front of every day? Okay, that is an example, and I love the way he does it. And he does that on his offer. You know, the same thing when he's making an offer, he will work backwards. He'll look at the big picture and work backwards till he gets to where he wants to be. And that is one of the biggest things I have picked up from Ray over the years working with him is work backwards. Look where you want to go or where you're going, and then work backwards.
Let me give you real quickly, and I'm glad you said that, James, about the KPI and tying it to what we're talking about. If you were to look at like an intermediate KPI, and I didn't make this up, I observed it firsthand, and it got me to really thinking. And I heard this 39 years ago, and I've never forgot it, and it's so true. We went to a RIA meeting, and they would ask the audience, how many contracts have you turned in the last 30 days? And I sat there and I was thinking, like, wait a second, if you turn in a contract, what do you got to know to turn in a contract? And think of this as a KPI. What do you have to know in order to turn in a contract, right? And so as an intermediate KPI, I think of like, hey, I'm gonna pick a number. I'm gonna pluck a number from air where I turn in 5 contracts or 20 contracts. If I'm gonna say whatever that number is, if I'm gonna turn 10 contracts in the next 30 days, what do I have to know to turn in those 10 contracts? And one is like, how do I fill out a contract? One is, who do I give a contract to? I got to have people to give a contract to. Another one is like, what's my strategy on the contract? Another one is like, if they say yes, how am I going to perform? Because that's a fear of them. You know, trust me, I've been so many times in my life, I was scared to death that they were going to say yes when I made an offer. So, but the fear is okay, because the fear keeps your eyes wide open, it keeps your ears working, it keeps your adrenaline going, and that's what we need to do. But what a great KPI is say, look, I'm going to do 10 offers in the next 30 days. And what if you only, let's say you haven't done any in the last 5 years, what if you just did one? What a huge accomplishment that would be. And it might take you all 30 days, on the first 30 days, to figure out how to do that one. And I guarantee you, if you can figure out how to do that one in the first 30 days, you can do 30 the next 30 days. And maybe not that many, maybe that's an exaggeration, because we still got to have leads, but you can definitely, you can multiply that at least 10, 5 to 10 contracts. And do people have to take your contracts? No. And in fact, there's a saying, I've never heard anybody else say it, so I'm going to take credit for saying it, is make offers you can't refuse. You know, it's a play on like, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. No, make offers you can't refuse. If James got something for sale for 100,000 and I offer 50,000 and he accepts it, I got to take it. Right. So what I do is I make that offer so good that if they do take it, there's virtually zero risk. And James knows, all people that are in this business, if James and every wholesaler worth of salt knows this, if you get a good enough offer and a good enough deal, there's no shortage of buyers. So you don't need to be fearful of partners and buyers coming to rescue you. What you got to do though,
there's no shortage of buyers, and there's no shortage of partners or money. If the deal makes sense, it's like they say, build the field, players will show up. When the student's ready to learn, the teacher will be there to teach. The same thing with the deals. You get the right deals, the money will be there. So we're gonna start heading into the last segment of this training. But before, if you want to work with us and know how we can help you get the outcomes you want, and we want to, you want us to keep you accountable for outcomes, drop outcome in the comments and we'll reach out to you. We'll set up a time to connect on a short call and let you know how we can hold you accountable and get you the results and the outcomes that you want. But I did want to take a minute, Ray, and mention, because this goes right in lines, and we might be talking to Matt, one of our students, and having him on in the near future, but he just went through a deal that the average person would have just walked away from, from the beginning. And so let me break that down a little bit. He was looking at a triplex. Him and his wife were looking at a triplex. They were, they made an offer. Well, the seller ended up going with another buyer. And so he had rapport with them. I believe he kept in contact with them. And then that deal ended up, the other buyer could not perform. Well, he was the first person that they reached back out to because they knew he was interested. Okay, well, one of the first things he did was he negotiated a lower price from that point. Okay, and then they ended up getting the contract. Well, then there was an issue with, I believe it was the comps or something like that. It wouldn't appraise or something. And so they had to explore. And I know that I personally talked to Matt 2 or 3 times about this, but they must have explored at least 5 or 6 other options, negotiating a seller financing, letting them, carry part of it. They reached out to probably 5 or 6 different lenders to bring to the table. And what they did is they exhausted every option before they realized, this is a dead deal. And that is an example of being accountable for outcomes. They were going to make that deal happen. They weren't going to force it, because the numbers still, you can't force a deal, you can't force the numbers, but they were going to do everything they could to make that deal happen.
Well, and what happens too, James, is a lot of times everybody's high and mighty and they think they got a great deal because they have 10 prospective buyers, and it's just like all those buyers go away because there's other issues or people can't do what they expect. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've bought houses from people who said, well, I told my neighbor I'd give them the first right to buy it. And almost never is a neighbor able to buy it. So you got to stick to your guns. You got to make your buy decisions based on sound reason and market data, and not emotional. And it's impossible for it not to be emotional. And Tina, I guess, is asking, did they get the deal? I haven't checked with Matt. I think it's temporarily dead, but I'm not sure. She also asked how to get the contract, and I'm not sure how she means that, like a contract to use, or how do you get a person to sign a contract and agree to what you want to do? So it's 2 different answers. How to get the contract, relatively simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it's on how to get a contract, I used to use the world's crappiest contract for probably 10 years and got lots of deals with it. And I didn't have a lot of protection in there that I needed. It was a 1-page contract. We've since then gone either to the state mandated contract, because there's a lot of those, or we go to our own in-house contract that we built that's about 5 pages long. So you don't have to use a great contract to get a great deal. As you get better, your contract will get better. If her question is, how do I go out and actually get a contract? There's lots of ways to do that. You got to find motivated sellers. In the first Tuesday in Texas is called Super Tuesday, but this is generally true. Properties are foreclosed on, and properties are in the process of being taken away from other owners, or they're being abandoned. And there's always lots of motivated sellers out there. And when you get the truly motivated seller, you're going to be given a good chance to buy that. And so your goal is to, and we're not talking about leads tonight, but the bottom line is find motivated sellers, find sellers that are ready to take action now. We don't want to typically deal with somebody that hasn't made up their mind. We want people who are pretty committed to getting the property gone. And then we can create terms and deal structures and scenarios that'll make you a lot of money. By the way, I don't know if you got this, and I'd like to take the credit for them, but one of our students today, past students, but he's also turned out to be a real good friend. I probably learned as much from him as he has from me, but he just got approved for a $1.5 million line of credit to buy real estate with. And he used as collateral, he used properties that he's bought over the last few years as collateral, because these assets have gone up so far in value that now he's leveraging existing performing properties. He's putting a lot of money in his bank account for funding future deals. And what a great story that is. And that's what you want to do. You want to get these properties, you want to try to figure out how to hold on to them. And you want to deal with motivated sellers, because they're the ones that are going to give you the deals that you need to make it work. Motivated seller can be somebody that has an asset that's not performing, and they don't have the wherewithal, or they don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the way to turn it into a performing property. So if you can find a motivated seller, you can find a property that's not performing, and you have the wherewithal to make it perform, it changes the rules. What's a property worth that makes $1,000 a month in income? And what if you could take that same property, like this guy, he took a similar property that would probably rent for $1,500 a month, and he's gotten on average about $12,000 a month of income from that property. What's that worth? And he paid, even if he paid retail for that property, but he increased the income by a factor of 10, what's that property worth? If we're using the income approach on an asset, the property goes up based on the income. That if you're doing the comparable or the valuation based on income, then the more income you have, the more value that property has. So a lot of investors make their money not by buying below market, but buying at market and then increasing the value of that asset, increasing the income of that asset. And so that's what we want to do. There's lots of ways to make this happen. Either motivated sellers or taking a property and change the use of it.
Yeah, and so the main objective, just to piggyback on what Ray said, the main objective is it's got to be a motivated seller. Okay. Focus on, go back to the K in K.A.L.M, and it's kind of tied in with leads, but learn how to market and generate leads. Learn about, pick 2 or 3, like driving for dollars, Facebook ads, and pick another one and dive deep down into those and learn and try to become an expert at those. We constantly talk about like what we're doing, like with our marketing KPIs and everything, we're drilling down and we're becoming experts. We're watching, YouTube videos on Facebook marketing, on different channels that we can use for our marketing to promote our events and everything. We're really diving deep into this. And it's because we want results. And so we have to put in the time, the effort, the energy to learn and become experts at getting in front of the people that we want to get in front of. And it's the same thing with talking to motivated sellers. And then I'm going to add on to what Ray was saying about the getting the contract. Just, negotiate the best possible deal that you can, and then put it on a contract. And it's more than just negotiating, but it's solving that person's problem. If Ray has a house that he desperately needs to get rid of, I need to figure out why he needs to get rid of it, what the problem is, and then I need to provide a solution. That solution might be all cash. That solution also might be, hey, I just need to take this property out of his hair and make the payment.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So what else we got to talk about tonight?
We got about 5 or 10 minutes left, so I want to do a last call for questions. Drop your questions, and Hal, who is our tech support guy, he's behind the scenes. We want to thank him because he does help us out quite a bit. So Hal, if you see any questions on YouTube or on in Facebook anywhere, send them in the chat so that we can answer them. But I do want to let people know about our upcoming meetings that we have. If you're watching and you're in Houston or you're in San Antonio, we've got some really cool meetings coming up. In San Antonio, it's going to be on November 11th. We're going to have Robin Thompson in, and she's going to be talking about rehab. She's the rehabbing queen. So she's going to be doing an event in San Antonio. And then on Saturday, November 13th, if you're in Houston, we have our monthly meeting there as well. We're going to be talking about the down and dirty of wholesaling and flipping houses. So if you're a wholesaler, you're getting started, or you want to flip houses, this is the perfect meeting to come to. We actually have a couple of special guests coming there as well. Do you want to add anything to that, Ray?
What about our bus tour? Is that still going on?
The bus tour is going to be on December 4th. Yes. And if you want any information on any of these events, drop a comment down below and we'll make sure that you get the information for all of these events. Ray, how do you talk to a FSBO and get them to drop their price?
Is that a question?
Yes.
It's not okay now.
Let me take a stab at it.
Go ahead.
Let me take a stab at it. So again, from my opinion, you got to talk to them and find out why they're selling that property. And you got to work out, you got to get to the pain point. You got to find out what their motivation is. If you're looking at a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being super motivated, like, take this property from me right now. And then 1, well, I just let it sit here. If I sell it in the next 2 years, then I sell it. If not, oh well. If they're anything less than an 8, you really don't want to mess with them. Okay, you just want to move on. It's going to be a waste of time. But again, it comes down to asking questions, find out why they're selling, find that pain point, find their motivation, find out what the problem is, and then provide the solution. That's how you're going to, and that's with any motivated seller, not just a FSBO, that's going to be with any motivated seller.
Yeah, the other thing is it's not, if you're doing FSBO, the real power in FSBO is not price, it's terms. So we can effectively, if we understand the time value of money, we can effectively drop the present value by getting favorable terms. And we really, really want to do FSBOs because we can get those terms, and then it opens up the door for us doing all kinds of exit strategies. I mean, you can on a FSBO, and you got the right terms, you can fix and flip, you can buy and hold, you can do lease options, you could do master leases, you could do Airbnbs where you're doing basically Airbnb arbitrage. So the terms are the real power of working with FSBOs. If I was working on FSBOs, it's not about the price. Price is probably the least important thing I would be working for. I would be working for getting control and getting something of value out of that helps me. And it might be cash flow, it might be equity, it might be use of the property, and if you're talking about price, you're talking about typically turning around and selling the property. So So FSBO, it's not just price, but if I was specifically going to talk about price, the best thing to do is to have the seller understand that the house has a value in the marketplace, in the condition that it's in, and that you have certain limitations and certain costs, and you know, and you have to get them in line with what you think that value is and get them to understand it. So a lot of times people with FSBOs have an unreasonable expectation of what a property will do, and sometimes they don't. If they're truly motivated, then they're going to be much more willing to work with you than if they're not. And remember, FSBO doesn't, it's not necessarily just owner occupied, right? It could be anything. It's a for sale by owner. It's an owner that wants to sell it. And I've probably bought, I don't know what I bought more of, FSBOs or wholesaler type properties. The only problem with the wholesaler properties is wholesalers they don't ever really hone their craft to the level that a creative guy does. A creative guy understands why he needs to be creative, or they understand why they need to be creative. And so they understand that. And those people are the ones that really build long-term wealth. Wholesalers typically don't build long-term wealth unless it's a transition for them. There's a lot of wholesalers I've known over the years that started out as wholesalers and realized a better way is do some wholesaling, but also learn how to hold on to the other parts. The student we were talking about earlier, he figured out how to buy and hold, and his properties have quadrupled in price in the last 10 years. And it's like, he would have been heartbroken if he just sold those properties or given them away for peanuts. You know, making $10,000 on a wholesale fee is peanuts. It's not the game. That's the wrong game to be playing.
All right, Hal, do we have any more questions yet? Last call. We got just a couple more minutes to see if any more questions come through. Again, if you're wanting any information on our events, you know, send us a message, drop a comment. If you want to know more about working with us and how we can help hold you accountable for your outcome, the key word for that is outcome. Drop that in the comments, and we'll reach out to you, and we'll get you some information on that. Let me check. There is something in the chat. Yes. Yeah, we'll put the link to our bus tour. All of our information will be in the comments. So with that, this thing is not holding my phone up anymore, which is a good thing that it's happening now because we're almost done. And then don't forget to tune into our radio show on Saturday. So guys, if you got something out of tonight, drop a comment. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, James.
Hey, James.
What?
Can I share real quickly with the group, and maybe they can write this down, but there's a guy named Dr. Hennig that when we teach our negotiation class, we're talking about negotiating with people and getting them to see things our way. And you said knowledge was one of those things that create power. Let me give you a list of 10 of them, and each one of these have their own explanation. But when we're going to negotiation, there's a thing called alternative power. If you're a wholesaler and all you can offer is cash, you don't have near the power that I do when I'm talking to that for sale by owner. There's a legitimacy power that you get from being a real person, being legitimate, being a real buyer. Those things create power. There's a power of risk, the risk that they take. If they do or don't do the deal, there's risk. There's commitment. Almost always the person that's more committed is going to have the outcome swing their way. Not always, but that gives them a huge advantage.
So are you going through the list right now, Ray?
Yeah, I'm saying the name.
I tried to stop you because I want somebody, as Ray is saying these 10 things, comment below so everybody can see it, and then write them down and put them to work. Go ahead, Ray, continue.
Yeah, so it was alternative, legitimacy, risk, commitment, knowledge, Knowledge, it comes in a couple things. Knowledge about options, right? Knowledge on like, what can we do? How do we do this? What are the alternatives? What are the exit strategies? But there's another knowledge too, a specific knowledge, like what is it that that they're dealing with? What is the reality of their timetable? What is it that they have to do? I don't want to say it as an enemy, but as a person that studies civil wars and those kinds of things, knowledge, the intel of what the other side's thinking and doing and where they're coming from. So knowledge is very, very powerful. Expert, as a guy that's done 1,000 rehabs, you're not going to know more than me if you're a typical seller on what it's going to cost to fix a house up, right? But you can be an expert on a lot of things. If you're an appraiser, you're going to know how to figure out a value oftentimes better than a seller would know. There's reward. What are the rewards? How do people benefit by doing business with you? And so when we're talking about for sale by owners, all these things come into play, and we need to understand better. Like when we do if we do like a 3-day workshop, we go in deep into these. When we do our negotiation workshop, we go deep into these. Time. What are the timetables people are dealing with in Texas, for example? And time, there's timetables on everything, and there's a time of the year that somebody has to have their money in to pay for their child's tuition. There's a time of the year that taxes have to be paid, or you get big penalties. There's a time when somebody's going to get foreclosed on, and the property will be taken out of their name and put out into somebody else's name. So time is a big factor. And these are things, all these things bring power to the conversation when we're doing for sale by owner. Perception, perception is truth. And although technically that's not correct, it really is correct in the sense that people will behave based on what they believe. And if you don't change what they believe, then they're going to behave on that, whether they're right or wrong. And then relationships, probably the single most important thing on this list. Relationships, if people know and trust and like you, they're much more likely to do business. There's a guy, I won't say his last name because he hasn't given me permission, but I made an offer to people $5,000 higher than another guy that was there right before me, and they took his offer. And it's because they had a relationship with that person where they'd done business with that guy several years earlier. And even though we got off, it was a good relationship. Everybody was cordial. Everybody was friendly. Everybody was nice with each other. There was no disruptive type things going on, none that I'm aware of. And they still took this other person's offer because they had worked with that person before. They had that confidence. And so all those things play into getting the outcomes we want. And when we're learning how to convert, I might be able to convert 1 out of 5 deals. Somebody that's never done this before, that does everything wrong, they might convert 1 in 50 deals, but they're going to start picking up these factors of power. And when they pick up these factors of power, they're going to learn, hey, if I can do this better, if I can improve this, if I can solve this problem, if I can deal with this time issue, if I can give them alternatives or show them legitimacy. I know a guy that buys 200 deals a year, and as a host, not buys, but he wholesales 200 deals a year, and he's a big Better Business Bureau fan, because that gives him the legitimacy that he couldn't get on his own at 32 years of age or 34 years of age, whatever his age is. So learning how to use these these power principles are things that we want to talk about. It's things we want to discuss. And no, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and master all these things. But if you're constantly mindful of them and know that there's a big list of things that we got to improve, your conversion rate's going to go through the roof, which means it's going to become a lot more fun when you make 1 deal out of 4 calls instead of one deal out of 50 calls. So hopefully it answers her. How do you get people to take or lower their price? So it's not about price. It's about the relationship and the power that you're bringing to the table. And that's it. That's the 10.
All right. Thank you, Ray. that was awesome. So that's our show. I don't have any more questions coming in, so that's it for tonight. Again, I'm gonna do my closing for the second time. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Hal. Thank you to our audience, our guests. Thank you to those that are leaving comments and engaging, asking questions. That's what we're here for. We're always here to answer your questions as much as we can. So every Wednesday we do this live training, 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time, right here in the Facebook group. So next time, bring a friend, tell a friend about it, and we are going to have a couple of special guests coming up here pretty soon, within the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. And on that note, good night, everybody, and we will see you on Saturday on our radio show.